live.
We're live.
We're live. Yay. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Employee Advocacy, where we're going to get blabby on Blab. This is episode number 3, where we are talking about activating digital literacy with Amy. Amy, is it Heiss or Heiss?
It's Heiss.
That's what. Okay, Amy Heiss at Dell, who I was just saying. Her at name, her identifier always makes me think it's Amy Hat Dell, because she is actually the person in charge of the SMaC U program, social media activation. And Amy's going to tell us more about that and the kind of steps to building a successful foundation and training programs, et cetera, et cetera. And I've heard her speak before, and she's brilliant, of course, as is the Dell program. And the man who needs no introduction, Scott Monty, I think no introduction. Scott Monty Strategies, and so much more. If you are not subscribing to his weekly email, you're missing out. And check it out. By the way, I have both Amy's links and Scott's links in the live chat here. Even if you are looking at this or watching this in a replay, you can access those at any time. So, at risk of that sounding like a commercial, I like to give props where they're due. So thank you guys for joining. We're going to just plow through 30 minutes. I know it's going to go so quickly. And what I like to do, or what we've been doing in the previous blabs about employee advocacy, is starting up by just asking how you define employee advocacy. And I think that's valuable because this is new for so many people, and even those of us who are working in and around it, it morphs and changes over time. So, Amy, you're in the upper right hand corner from my boxes. How do you define employee advocacy? And we've lost her briefly.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. While we wait to get her back online. Technology. Scott, how do you define employee advocacy?
I'm on the hot seat. Well, it's pretty simple, and advocacy more broadly is people who are in your corner who will do something on your behalf if asked. Okay. Now, I think the flip side of the employee advocacy portion. Oh, look at that! I moved. The flip side is that you may not actually, if you've got a good employee advocacy program, you may not have to ask them at all. They may do it of their own accord. I mean, that's ultimately where you'd like to get to, but at the beginning stages, it's just about having employees who are engaged, who are willing to go to bat on behalf of the company that you all work for.
Yeah, I agree. There's, welcome back. That was like a genie in the bottle. Or like
so funny, right when you asked the question.
Right? That was awesome.
I covered for you, Amy. Don't worry.
Well, since you're back, let's hear your answer, Amy. How do you define employee advocacy?
I heard Scott's, and I agree, at least most of his, and I agree. It's really about empowering your employees to share their love or affiliation with your brand, with their network, what you're doing that they're proud of, that they want to share with their communities.
So, as Scott just was talking about, though, in a perfect world, you wouldn't even have to ask or incentivize your employees to share on behalf of the brand. But it's not always a perfect world, and oftentimes it's not. So what do you think the challenges are, or the hesitations are? I mean, this is a really broad topic, but if employees aren't already willing to share, maybe start with, what do we do? What do we do? How do you address that?
Well, for us, it wasn't about their unwillingness to share. It was that they weren't sure they had permission to share. And so we started a program to let them know we do have a point of view about your social media use. We do have a social media policy at Dell, and we encourage you to make that connection with our customers. It's really part of Dell's DNA to have a direct relationship with our customers. And we felt like social media was a natural extension of that relationship, that we could allow our employees to have direct conversations through social, or even if you think about it, email, communities, those are all places where these direct conversations can also take place in a digital space. And so our employees just needed to know it was okay. We don't incentivize even today, but we definitely allow and ask for people to share if they're comfortable sharing.
Mm-hmm. Scott, what do you think about the permissions? My experience is very much the same, that if people feel like they've had their hands tied in the past, they need explicit permission in order to go forward. They need that. Oh, hello.
We have our own employee advocate here who's visiting.
Hello, Grace.
Can you say hi, Grace? You say hi. See you right there.
Hi.
You wave to everybody. There you go. All right. So I think there's a couple of things. One, yeah, permission is always an issue. You're a goofball. People want to know whether they can, and usually it's tied to other kind of communications efforts. It's nap time. But the other thing is, hey, look at the doggy. Look at the doggy. The other thing is that sometimes they don't actually have the tools. They don't have the capability to go about doing it. And not only do they need the permission, but they need some kind of guidelines to go about the how. It's the why and it's the how that have to be addressed. Okay, say bye.
Yeah. The what?
Say bye.
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 Okay.
So what's in it for me? Maybe the what's in it for me, what's in it for the brand.
Right.
Which I find to be quite consistent, no matter the size of the organization. I just think we're in that place and time now. What's in it for me?
Right. And usually there has to be a kind of a quid pro quo there. Obviously, the brand needs to get something out of it, but the individual, whether they're held up as an example, whether they are given the permission to be the first to know and to be that point person among their peers that then spreads some cool and new information, or something that's funny, or whatever it is that you're giving your employees for access for content. Making them the hero in the part of the process is really important, because ultimately people like to get messages from other people, not from faceless brands. And that's why employee advocacy really is so important, is because you've got an army of supporters already within the walls of your organization.
And I think all three of us and other people I've talked to about, from time to time, in many ways this is not new. It's not new. I think that the climate and the general digital and social ecosystem has evolved to a point where, as you just touched on, peer-to-peer recommendations are always going to trump any brand message of any kind. That's where we live. You have diminished reach just by virtue of changing algorithms. Pick a channel. Employees aren't checking their email. Unfortunately, I'm forgetting the statistic right now. Something like 30% of employees don't read emails from their employers. How is that possible?
No, so many, because there's so many.
Right? But I mean, like, if I got an email from my employer, I'd be, ooh, better see what that is, when that's the exact opposite thing that's happening, and certainly trending toward that. So I love that the technology has now advanced enough that we have architecture that we can rely on to sufficiently develop programs that we've been trying to cobble together for so long. And I love that many platforms really understand that baking in some sort of ROI is important. So there are some, I like to say that I'm platform agnostic. I mean, there's some that do a better job of integrating a sales CRM, into the endeavor. There are others that are really focused more on just reach, but whatever it is, I love that there's this consciousness around having to bake in ROI, because as I said, cobbling those pieces together for so long was labor intensive, generally proved nothing to anyone other than what you could share anecdotally.
Yes, I agree. But we've found great statistics too around ROI that don't even have to do with the bottom line as much as they have to do with employee engagement for us. So we have an annual survey called Tell Dell, which is an employee satisfaction survey. And when we look at the results of Tell Dell, our employees who are sharing in social, who have been trained through the SMaC U program, are scoring higher on employee satisfaction than those who have not been through our training program. And some of the feedback we're receiving from those employees are things like, I feel a connection between my work and the strategy. I understand the strategy. I know the direction the company is going in. And that's a lot to do with receiving content from us to share in their networks if they choose to. So they're getting information that maybe people who aren't using social aren't getting trickled down from their leadership yet. And so they do feel, to Scott's point, like they're, the first to know, and they get to be the ones who share in their networks and communities about information. And, we see those results in our employee satisfaction, that they're happier employees. They tend to be more engaged with what we're doing.
Makes perfect sense.
Really does.
I was glad that it proved out when we looked at the data.
I mean, Scott, I know you just came back from your Walmart is one of your clients, and I know you just came back from their annual meeting and populated by a lot of employees. And I'm wondering, do they have a program, a formal program in place, or can you speak to that a little?
So they share the same information internally that they do externally, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you've got 2.3 million employees, the expectation is that it's all public information, what you're sharing. But what they do, and you probably saw if you had a chance to tune into the video there at all, they did a live Facebook video on the CEO's Facebook account, which I think is really cool that the CEO of Walmart actually decided to take out a Facebook account and is using it, and is very active. They panned around the arena, and yes, Walmart had to have its meeting in an arena because it was so big, and there were thousands and thousands of employees there who were so pumped. And the message was, we're about you, employees, but together we are all about, and the employees all shouted it back, the customer. The customer is number one always. I mean, the mantra is down, and they all chanted it together. Right. So you talk about one of the most difficult jobs of getting 2.3 million people mobilized. And you've got white collar workers, you've got blue collar workers, you've got full-time, you've got part-time, you've got hourly, you've got salaried. It's all around the spectrum there. And yet they've got this message down, and they're able to communicate it effectively and simply across all of those different types of employees.
And did they ever have any sort of formal restrictions with respect to employees talking about the brand? I mean, it sounds like they wouldn't have.
No. I mean, their employees are all charged to go talk to customers.
Yeah.
And they want to be well represented. And again, if you're doling out information to 2.3 million people, you can't keep anything secret with that many people. I mean, you can't even keep it secret with 10 people. So the expectation is there that, go forth, be fruitful, and, well, not multiply, but, engage.
Amy, did you want to add to that? It sounded like it looked like you were nodding.
I think it's incredible what they're doing with so many people. Scott, did you talk to them, or do they know, what did they say about employees who are sharing branded content on their personal accounts, who are also sharing messages that the brand doesn't agree with, that aren't branded, of course? So if the brand supports a cause, but the employee personally doesn't support the cause, how are they addressing that?
I think they just accepted that people are people, and everybody has the right to hold their own personal views. As long as they're not attaching Walmart to the personal views that they have that don't agree with the company, they're fine. Right. And that's the reality. When you get to a certain scale, you just can't control how people act. And quite frankly, you just need to understand psychology. You need to understand what drives people to begin with and allow them to be human. You know why? Because people like humans. They don't like people that sound like they're corporate spokespeople. They don't like people that are taking the same scripted message and posting it the same way everywhere. That just seems robotic rather than human, right? So I think give them the leeway to actually do that, as long as they're not damaging the brand at the same time.
You know, the humanizing piece of it is interesting. I was talking with Michelle Quinn, who's a reporter at the Mercury News last week, and she was she was writing a piece specifically about CEOs who tweet and or don't. Was actually more accurate in her finding. She had not expected to find that, but did find that. And as we were chatting, I said, you know, it's interesting because we like to talk so much about humanizing the brand. We're humanizing the brand all the time. We're humanizing. But your CEO, if he's your chief, he or she is your chief human, why are they behind some, walled garden? Just step out in front of the wall and be the chief human. Be the human in charge of humanizing your brand. She quoted that a little bit, more or less.
Yeah, you know what? And I have no experience with a CEO who isn't human in the brand space, because Michael Dell has been a champion of social media since really the early 90s, when he was in listservs and he participated in Ask Jeeves conversations, so before we called it social media, Michael was in that space. And he does do a great job of being human. He shares a lot of Dell messages. But when Conan O'Brien made a joke about Dell when the Steve Jobs movie came out, Michael Dell tweeted the video that Conan made, and along with a picture of a product that we just released that week, which was our thinnest ever. And the joke in the Conan O'Brien video was, Michael Dell saying, "I said make it bigger. I said make it slower." And so Michael posted, "I said make it bigger," and there it is, our smallest computer that we've ever released. So he gets the joke, and he gets how to use it. And someone asked, I guess Kanye West asked Mark Zuckerberg for like $1 billion. And someone came to Michael Dell's Twitter page and said, "Hey, Michael, can I have $1 billion, asking for a friend?" And Michael responded to the post with an image of a $1 billion bill from Zimbabwe or somewhere and said, "Yeah, here you go." So, he gets it. He has a good time. Nobody in our PR department is gathering together to have a meeting to figure out how Michael should respond to posts like that. He's just a human, and he's having fun with it, and he doesn't need our advice for that.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a unicorn.
He is rare. It is rare to have a CEO who not only is active, but is doing it solely. We don't have access to his account, so nobody's ghostwriting for him. And he oftentimes will find conversations that he wants us to address in social before our tools do. So he's very in tune to what's going on in the space.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Before because I knew this time would go quickly. We're already at 10:22, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to get into a little bit of nitty gritty. So Amy, when we first kind of jumped on, you were saying, I think before we went live, actually, you were saying that the SMaC U program, and maybe you could talk just a little bit about what that is for people who don't know, has evolved, and you've changed your approach a little bit. So if you could speak to that, I am all ears.
Okay, sure. Yeah, well, SMaC U is our training and certification program at Dell. So we have a little fun with the acronym, and that's thanks to Liz Bullock. If anybody knows Liz, she's at Rackspace now, but she came up with the SMaC U name, and that stands for Social Media and Community University. And it's our training program at Dell that anyone can take to become SMaC certified to speak on behalf of the brand in social. So they can get accounts like mine, Amy H at Dell, or their name at Dell, or they can use their personal accounts, however they choose to do it. But essentially, once you've taken our training, you're provided tools, resources, content that you can share with your networks. You're provided, the certification is sort of the start of everything. It's not the end. So you get additional training. For example, this week we're training on how brands are using Snapchat. So we give further training after you've been through our initial. And in the beginning, it was a 2-day course, and it covered our policy, our strategy, how to get started, what your voice sounds like for a brand versus personally. And then there was a course on each platform. So how do you use Twitter? Not how do you log in to Twitter or create an account, but more what's the voice, what's the culture for Twitter, and how do you participate in those conversations? What's a tweet chat? How do you create a list? Those kind of things. Then we kind of made it a one-day training because we needed more people to be able to attend, and having people in a corporate environment take 2 days out. We just we saw a huge initial push, about 6,000 people right away, but then it started to slow down, and we realized it was just too long. And so it was one day, but it was still kind of lecture based, still PowerPoint, still a lot of conversation, but not a lot of activity. It was really just discussion. But in February, we changed that, and Sean Carey and Jenny Newman, who design our program for us internal at Dell, created this whole experience. So now it's a 4-hour class, and you are a gumshoe. You are a detective. Someone has stolen data at Dell, and you're going to use their social media accounts to figure out who did it. And so who has motive, who has opportunity, what do their profiles say about them, who's using social media correctly for Dell, who's following the rules. So it's completely hands-on for 4 hours. And at the end of the session,
God,
so fun. At the end of the session, you guess who did it, and then the trainers reveal whether you're correct or not, and how which clues you should have picked up on to determine who did it. And I will say, the first time I went through the training with the team, when they were showing me what they'd done, I guessed wrong. So in the training, it's so neat. You can tweet with the potential suspects to ask them questions to get more clues. You can direct message with them. You look at their LinkedIn profiles and see if their profiles are complete and what it says about them. You think about your own profile as a detective. What kind of message do I want to put out there about myself? So in the training, we cover how to use social, what our policy is, but we also cover things like what your LinkedIn profile says about you when you're sleeping, because these suspects, we're looking at their accounts and they're not with us to give us context or fill things in. So what kind of message are we putting out there? And it's fantastic. We're getting a huge response. Our classes are all full, and we're seeing people say it's really sticky. The message stays with me, and people love coming to a training class where they're allowed to bring their computers. They're encouraged to be in social media. So it really is fun.
So was it Colonel Mustard in the conference room with the laptop?
No, but I like your thinking, because it is sort of a cluish type game. But no, we, for copyright reasons, we don't have Colonel Mustard playing with us.
Yeah, of course. So have you guys actually thought about packaging this up and offering it out to other brands? I mean, it sounds like a really unique way to go about it and to engage employees. It seems like it could be an actual moneymaker for you if you did it right.
Yeah, we actually do have a division of Dell Services, that sells this. So we have several customers who they are not using our newest training. They were using our older training, but they're just now promoting the new training that's available to our customers as well.
Very cool.
That is, I know. I was like, wait, put your jaw back up. That's unattractive. Go like that. That's really brilliant. It really, truly is brilliant. So
all credit to Sean and Jenny. They're brilliant. They're smart, they're funny, and they're great trainers.
Well, we can get so stuck in what we think training needs to look like or be. Even before you got there, I was going to ask you about onboarding, but wow, that's just an automatic onboard.
Yeah, and I think people get it. What was missing from our old training was just hands-on experience, and this entire training is hands-on experience. And it's great when people come as a team too, because they're working with their teammates and they're looking at each other's LinkedIn profiles. They're giving each other feedback on, that photo is amazing, but it's intimidating, or you need to change your photo so that your spouse's shoulder isn't appearing in the picture. It should just be. Right. So yeah, it's great to have teams come through and go through the process together.
So let me ask you something else then. It would be sort of a follow-up to all of that is, are you currently then assessing for levels of competency and, guiding them through the programs in a specific way, especially with this experiential piece? How does that work?
We look at their clout scores, which, there are going to be people who say, well, clout can be gamed, and that's fair. But clout is gamed when you're sort of an expert in how to use the tool. And we're training, salespeople, talent acquisition people, finance. And so they're not spending their day-to-day as social experts, and they don't really get how to game the system yet. And even if they were gaming the system, what that means is they're sharing content through clout versus sharing it through avenues we're giving them. That's a lot of the ways that you could kind of increase your score. So they're still sharing content at the end of the day, but we're looking at their cloud scores, we're looking at their social footprint, how often are they sharing, are they growing their networks? And then from a sales perspective, we're looking to see, are they growing their pipeline? Are they increasing the time to sales? So we do a lot of measurement depending on, and it's business value. So it really depends on which area of the business you're in as to what metrics we're looking at to see if you're making an impact.
Scott, you look like you were nodding. I was going to acknowledge the nods.
No.
There was one other piece I wanted to kind of touch on. It was really just the training and activation across age groups, and that's the digital immigrants, those CEOs who've not yet answered the call to tweet, as I told Michelle the other day, versus the digital natives. And, there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, about both groups, that maybe the digital immigrants, know nothing. I mean, frankly, I could be considered a digital immigrant, but I'm not. I mean, I sort of am. I'm not a native, it didn't exist when I was born. But by the same token, the digital natives, they don't have a clear understanding of how to use any of this in business, and or just for their professional, more adult brand, maybe we'll call it. So, what sort of challenges are you looking at in that area, if any, and how are you addressing them?
Well, I think, again, it all comes down to just common core communications abilities. It really doesn't matter what the platform is. I mean, anybody can learn any platform as it comes along. You just have to have the innate ability to want to talk to people, to want to put yourself out there and relate. And quite frankly, I really don't understand why more CEOs don't, because they, as you say, they're the chief human. They're also the chief communications officer for any company. They're the cheerleader in chief. Any good CEO spends about 50% of his or her time doing PR related things, right? So why wouldn't they extend their reach to the digital space? Unless you're one of those CEOs, and there are a few still around, believe it or not, who write out their emails on a yellow legal pad and hand it to somebody to type up. There's really no reason not to be engaged in the digital space. I mean, you look at the CEO of T-Mobile, John Ledger, who has 2.5 million followers on Twitter. 2.5 million. That's more than the T-Mobile brand itself has on Twitter. Why? Because he's out there engaging with customers. He's solving problems. He's sharing interesting things in his life. He's a real human being, and you can tell he's having fun at it. And it's a commitment, yeah, but so is the rest of being a CEO. Right.
It's not an add-on. It's part of your job.
Right.
If you ask me. They didn't ask me, but I'm saying it. No, fully agree. I want to be respectful of your time, and we are definitely at 30 minutes, and I could talk all day, as you probably know. But this might be a nice place to just sort of conclude our little discussion here. Do any parting thoughts from either of you on the advocacy piece, socially savviness, the programs that you're developing, whatever?
My parting thought is, if you trust a person enough to hire them to work in your company, you should trust them to speak on behalf of your company in social.
Giving you Blab props right there.
No, I think Amy said it all with that. I mean, if these people aren't worthy of putting out there, then why are they representing your company in the first place?
Hey, thank you, Bob Wider One, for joining us and for thinking it was cool. Everybody, I I will have a replay of this for everyone. Feel free to use it however you like. And thank you again for joining me. Feel free to make recommendations for future Blabs. I'm trying to do them on a monthly basis, although, as I mentioned to Amy earlier, I may be migrating them to Facebook Live. Answer fuzzy, ask again later. Not sure yet. But in the meantime, thank you all so much. It's voting day in California, so whoever's watching, go vote, go exercise your right to vote. And thank you. I'm available anytime, as I'm sure Amy and Scott are, to engage with any of you, because that's what we do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Everybody, cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.